Get ready to dive deep into one of the most gripping legal battles of our time. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and today we're unraveling the high-stakes drama surrounding one of the music industry's most enigmatic figures, Sean Diddy Combs. In a case that has captivated millions, the courtroom has become a battleground for fame, fortune, and the dark secrets that lurk beneath the glittering surface of celebrity life. As the gavel comes down, we'll explore the allegations, the testimonies, and the shocking twists that could change the course of Diddy's legacy forever. Was this case merely a clash of lifestyles or something much more sinister? With each episode, I will bring you exclusive insights, analysis, and witness testimony accounts that will leave you on the edge of your seat. So buckle up as we embark on this thrilling ride through the trial of the century, where the stakes are high, the drama is real, and the truth is anything but certain. This is the trial of Sean Combs. Let's get started. We're going to talk about a key witness missing in this trial, really the bombshell of day 3 of jury selection. We're also going to talk about more comical responses in those jury selection questionnaires, as well as a smile that Diddy cracked during one of these jurors' responses. We're also going to talk about what's next. When can we expect opening statements to begin? We do have a date. It's set in stone, so we're going to discuss that. And finally, I'm going to give you an overview of everybody that makes up the defense team for Sean Combs. This may rival the dream team defense that O.J. Simpson put together in the 90s. We're going to talk about all that today. The third day of jury selection did conclude, and the process to 45 prospective jurors has been reached in quick order. And I discussed with you on yesterday's podcast how with these federal cases, you're typically going to see a speedy jury selection process. Now, this Friday, May 9th, court is set to resume at 9 o'clock a.m. And at that point, the attorneys, they're going to take turns executing what is known as preemptory strikes on the jurors they want eliminated from that pool of 45. And that will continue until that pool of jurors is ultimately selected as a panel of 12 active jurors and 6 alternates. Now, at this point, that pool is narrowed to 45. So the prosecution, they're going to get 6 total strikes on Friday. The defense team will have 10 total strikes from that jury. And when I say total strikes, what I'm referring to is people that they are striking from that jury and sending home. And as it relates to alternates, each side gets 3 total strikes. And at the end of all that, you've got your 12 jurors and your 6 alternates. So it looks like the opening statements will start as scheduled on Monday of next week. Now on Wednesday, Combs, he was again present in the courtroom alongside his attorneys, and they started narrowing down that pool. Some comical and interesting discussions during this day of jury selection included what is now known as the doom scrolling prospective juror. Let me explain. This juror confessed to, quote, doom scrolling on social media. Now, the judge in this case, a little bit older, he wanted clarification on what doom scrolling actually meant. And the juror explained to the judge that doom scrolling is just another term for mindlessly swiping through your social on TikTok or on Facebook Reels. And he was making that point because he was asked if he had seen a whole bunch of social media posts regarding the case. And that's when he said he was doom scrolling. He said he's not really paying attention. He's just kind of mindlessly scrolling through those reels. So while he saw some, he wasn't so into the case that he was taking note of what those reels or what those TikToks were showing. Another juror who was questioned on Wednesday was dubbed the Star Wars binging juror. Now, this guy was questioned about why he didn't answer all of the questions on the juror questionnaire. He left some of those blank. You can't really do that. And he stated, "I was tired because I was binging the new Star Wars Andor that just came out." Apparently, a new Star Wars movie of some sort, which he did get a chuckle out of the judge, and I'm sure some bonus points for honesty for that prospective juror, and a pretty cool nickname as the Star Wars binging juror. And he was not kept for the remainder of the trial. Another juror actually got a smile out of Sean Combs when she was asked whether she recognized celebrities whose names may come up during the trial. Now, this was an older lady, and her response was, "I wish I did." Now, obviously, she's making a play on the fact that she is older and had no idea who most of these people were. Apparently, she don't listen to a whole bunch of rap music. And Diddy smiled. He almost started laughing, from what I'm told, when she made that comment. Now, the judge in the case brought up the Lord of the Rings. He made that reference when the many celebrity names were mentioned. He was quoted as saying, "When I went through the people and places list, which is several pages long, I felt like I was reading an appendix from Lord of the Rings." And I got to say, there's probably not many cases where Lord of the Rings comes up. So that was pretty interesting. Now, at the end of this third day of jury selection, 6 women and 5 men were given the green light to enter that final pool of 45 potential jurors. Their ages range from mid-20s to early 70s, and as in the prior 2 days that I reported on this, they ran the gambit as far as what they did in their professional lives. They had graphic designers, building contractors, and they even had a juror that worked in the counterterrorism office of the United Nations. Now, one potential juror, he had a conflict of interest, and I mean an obvious one, you might say. He and the judge were actually friends. He actually served as the judge's co-counsel in several cases when the judge was still an attorney. So he walked in the courtroom when his name was called, and the first thing the judge asked him was, "What's your opinion on the judge in this case?" And this potential juror answered, quote, "I think he's brilliant." Now, because of that relationship, he was obviously dismissed from the jury. And also, if you'll remember from yesterday's podcast, I told you about a juror who worked for HBO. Now, originally, the judge did not allow the dismissal of this juror, which the defense was arguing that this person worked at HBO, and HBO produced a documentary on Diddy, and they didn't feel comfortable with this person being on the jury. The judge actually overruled that because this particular person didn't work on that documentary. They just worked at HBO. Well, Wednesday, the defense counsel brought it up again, that objection, and the judge went ahead and agreed to dismiss that juror, which is probably the right decision. Again, if things don't go Diddy's way and he's convicted in this case, that could be something you could possibly bring up an appeal over. That person's probably a little too close to the case. Now, likely the biggest news, as a matter of fact, not likely, definitely the biggest news of this entire day took place when it was discovered that one of the 3 victims set to testify in this case may not appear. Now, this woman, who has not yet been identified, she's only known as victim number 3, was set to testify that Combs had coerced her into sexual acts. But prosecutors told the judge in Wednesday's jury selection that they are having a hard time contacting the accuser, and they're having a hard time contacting her attorney. Now, in the affidavit for this case, as I mentioned, she's just known as victim number 3. Nobody knows who she is outside of the court. Now, the prosecution said, we don't know whether she intends to appear, and we are trying very hard to find out because we're having trouble communicating with her counsel. They went on to say that victim number 3 does not live locally in New York and may not show up even if they tried to enforce a subpoena and wanted to call her to the stand. And it's important to mention she's already subpoenaed, but there's a difference between being subpoenaed for court and the court actually trying to enforce that subpoena. They're saying they don't think even if they try to enforce it, she'll show up. Now, that is a huge victory for Sean Combs if this person ends up not testifying. And look, I'll be honest, it's also somewhat of a victory in the court of public opinion, because if you don't show up for court, it makes it look like you're not willing to go under oath with what you're accusing someone of. Now, there's two sides to that. It could be she's just scared of retaliation from Sean Combs, and likely that's the case. But then it starts to become, it could go both ways type of thing. The optics just don't look good. And no matter what way you slice it, it's a major win for the defense if she ends up not testifying. Now, the prosecution did note that victim number 3's allegations were not immediately pertinent, and they said they weren't planning on hearing her testimony until the second part of the case. And they said her story is not going to be included in the opening statements on May 12th directly, but rather referred to amid a slew of allegations against Diddy. Now, let's talk about Diddy's defense team quickly, which in my opinion rivals O.J. Simpson's, quote, dream team defense in his trial. This team may even be better. They have over 150 years of legal experience. They've defended everyone from alleged United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Maggione to disgraced financier Martin Shkreli and rapper Young Thug in his RICO trial. Now, lead counsel for the defense is a guy by the name of Mark Agnifilio, and he brings with him a massive amount of experience. He defended NXIVM leader Keith Raniere, and if you don't know who that is, I'll tell you in a second. Big Pharma boss Martin Shkreli and Goldman Sachs banker Roger Ng. So Raniere, he was convicted for creating what prosecutors described as a sex cult in which female members were branded with his initials and kept in line through blackmail. He was sentenced to 120 years in prison. And I may do a podcast on his case. It's pretty wild. Now, Shkreli, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for securities fraud and conspiracy. And he was a big pharma boss. And of course, Roger Ng was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his role in a money laundering and bribery scheme that included paying more than $1.6 billion in bribes to dozens of government officials. And this attorney, he also has experience working as a federal and state prosecutor, and he has tried more than 200 cases over his 30-year career. Those are tried cases, not things that were pleaded out. He's also half of a legal power couple. His wife's name is Karen Friedman Agnifilio, and she is a former prosecutor who investigated the Trump Organization while with the Manhattan DA's office. And since leaving government service, her most high-profile client has been that 27-year-old Luigi Maggione, who is accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And then you have Teenie Garagos. Now, she's the founding partner of a New York-based law firm, and she also assisted the lead counsel in defending Raniere and Shkreli. She graduated from Loyola Law School in Los Angeles in 2016. And if you'll remember in the last episode, or it might have been the prior episode to that, I mentioned her father who is famed defense attorney Mark Geragos, Hunter Biden, Chris Brown, Michael Jackson, all defended by Mark Geragos. And I told you he's not representing Combs directly and got into a bunch of trouble because they were seeking his advice a couple of days ago. Same guy. And incidentally, he also is involved in the Eric and Lyle Menendez case. And then we'll move on to Alexandra Shapiro. She brings over 30 years of appellate experience to the legal team. So she specializes in appeals. She was actually the deputy chief of appeals for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, and she was an advisor in the Office of Legal Counsel for the U.S. Department of Justice. So she knows how the other side works. She represented Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the multi-billionaire who got in a shit pile of trouble for a big scheme he was running regarding cryptocurrency. That was his attorney. Brian Steele, an Atlanta-based attorney, he joined Combs' legal team last month after he gained national attention by getting rapper Young Thug off the hook in his RICO case. That was the second longest trial in Georgia history. And I say off the hook, he wasn't completely out of trouble, but he worked out a plea deal in which Young Thug eventually pled guilty to gun, drug, and gang charges, but he got a very short sentence. I mean, he worked out a hell of a deal, and now he has joined Sean Combs' team. Xavier Donaldson, a New York-based criminal defense attorney, he joined Combs' legal team on the eve of the trial. He has nearly 30 years of criminal defense experience, and he was a former prosecutor. Anna Estivo is a partner at a New York law firm. She graduated from New York University School of Law, and she briefly worked as a federal defender in California. Jason Driscoll is an associate at Shapiro's law firm and is one of the most junior members of Combs' defense team. He graduated from New York University School of Law, and they say he's really good with research. Now, Linda Marino, she's a high-profile legal consultant as well. She joined Combs' legal team specifically to help with jury selection. She's known as an expert with picking juries. So there you have it. That is the dream team for Sean Diddy Combs, and we'll see how that all works out. And Monday, opening statement, folks. And shortly after those opening statements, look for another episode to drop. I mean, very shortly after, as in the next day, in all likelihood. Can't wait to bring you that. Can't wait for these opening statements to start. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is. It's free to follow me on those listening apps, and those apps will alert you as soon as I drop episodes for this case, because they're going to be sporadic throughout the week. So look for that. Consider joining the Patreon. Commercial-free early releases, even of the Trial of Diddy series episodes, all included in your Patreon membership, commercial-free and early, and it starts for as little as $2.50 a week, and you can really help support the show. It is how I'm able to do this, quite frankly. Check it out. Ton of benefits. Patreon.com/exposed podcast files. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman. I'll be with you soon with another The Trial of Sean Combs update. Much love.